In September 2024, Hong Kong woke up to a headline that sent ripples through its most elite circles. Ho Chuk-kwok, the former chairman of Sing Tao Daily and heir to a billion-dollar tobacco empire, had died quietly just months earlier. But now, a former Miss Hong Kong contestant, Rosa Law, had stepped out of the shadows, filing a lawsuit for $10 million, claiming the late tycoon owed her money before his death. The case instantly gripped Hong Kong's socialites and business world, because behind that single figure, $10 million, was a story of power, secrecy, and forbidden affection that spanned decades. How did one of Hong Kong's most respected businessmen end up borrowing millions from a woman he was once rumored to love? And why did she wait until he was gone to demand it back? As court documents surfaced, whispers began to spread about private loans made during the COVID-19 financial slump, about the quiet desperation of a family trying to protect its image, and about a man who, for all his wealth, couldn't escape the debts of his past. From the glittering world of tobacco fortunes to the quiet halls of the High Court, the fall of Ho Chuk-kwok revealed just how fragile even the strongest legacies can be. This is not just a legal dispute, it's a window into Hong Kong's hidden elite, where love, loyalty, and money are tangled in ways no one dares to admit. When Ho Chuk-kwok passed away in June 2024, it shocked Hong Kong's upper class. At 75, the billionaire was still active in interviews, public appearances, and charity events just months before his death. Known for his sharp suits, warm smile, and effortless charm, Ho was the kind of man who could move between boardrooms and banquets with ease. As the former chairman of Sing Tao Daily and heir to one of Hong Kong's oldest tobacco dynasties, he represented a generation of tycoons who built empires from grit, not speculation. Yet, beneath that aura of confidence, something darker was unfolding. 3 months before his death, Ho revealed in an interview that he had been diagnosed with lung cancer, the same illness that had claimed so many in his own industry. Ironically, the man who made his fortune from cigarettes had become a vocal anti-smoking advocate after his diagnosis. Friends described him as determined and composed, insisting he had his illness under control. But those who saw him in his final months noticed how frail he had become, his once energetic posture replaced by quiet exhaustion. Even so, Ho refused to slow down. In February 2024, he appeared on a TVB public health program urging citizens to quit smoking and take care of their health. On camera, his complexion was pale, his voice faint, yet his trademark charisma remained. He laughed, joked with the host, and thanked Hong Kong's medical staff for saving his life. To the public, it seemed like the tycoon was recovering, but those closest to him knew better. Behind closed doors, Ho's empire was under quiet strain. The Sing Tao Group, once a media powerhouse, was facing mounting financial pressure in the post-pandemic years. Advertising revenue had dropped sharply, and the group's international ventures in Canada and the United States were struggling. Rumors circulated that Ho was injecting personal funds to keep operations afloat. Even the family's once mighty tobacco business was faltering in a world that was rapidly turning against cigarettes. Then came June 11, 2024. Queen Mary Hospital confirmed that Ho Chuk-kwok had died of a lung infection following complications from cancer treatment. The announcement came swiftly, just 3 months after his upbeat TV appearance. His funeral, held on June 29th, was a scene of quiet grandeur. It took place at Hong Kong Funeral Home, attended by the city's most powerful families, the Lee, Ho, Lee, and Chung dynasties. Among the mourners were former Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying, business magnate Peter Wu, and a number of political elites. The floral tributes filled the hall, each name reading like a who's who of Hong Kong's establishment. Yet, amid all the elegance, there was a chilling absence. Rosa Law, the woman now suing his estate, was nowhere to be seen. Ho's widow, Wong Se-ying, stood by her children, maintaining the family's reputation for dignity and restraint. The media noted her composure, describing her as the quiet matriarch of a powerful dynasty. Few knew that, behind the formality, the Ho family was already being drawn into a storm they never expected. Within months of the burial, Rosa's lawyers would file her lawsuit, alleging that during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, Ho had borrowed $10 million from her and never repaid it. To most, it seemed unthinkable, a man born into billions borrowing money from a former actress. But to those who knew the city's hidden networks of relationships, it was all too believable. Because in Hong Kong's rarefied world of wealth and secrets, money and affection often blur into one. And sometimes, the truth doesn't surface until the man at the center is gone. Before the lawsuit, before the headlines, Rosa Law was known as one of Hong Kong's many faces that came and went from the glittering world of entertainment. In 1998, she was crowned a Miss Asia finalist, stepping into the spotlight with grace and poise. Her beauty was classic, her speech measured, her ambition unmistakable. But the entertainment industry in the late 1990s was a ruthless machine. Behind the glamour were networks of investors, producers, and wealthy benefactors who quietly decided whose star would rise and whose would fade. Rosa quickly found herself entangled in that world, where appearances could change your life, and one wrong association could end your career overnight. It was during this period that she reportedly met Ho Chuk-kwok, who had recently taken over management of Sing Tao Daily after returning from overseas. At the time, Ho was already married with children, a respected businessman known for his family's tobacco fortune and growing influence in the media. Yet his charm was legendary. Those who saw them together at charity galas and social gatherings whispered that there was something unmistakable between them, an energy that didn't fit the image of a strictly professional friendship. By the early 2000s, Rosa's face appeared less frequently on television and more often in society pages beside one of Hong Kong's most eligible tycoons. Their relationship, though never publicly confirmed, was an open secret among the city's elite. Some said she was his confidant, others claimed she was more, a companion who stood by him during a time when his empire was quietly shifting. In 2002, Rosa opened a luxury furniture boutique in Causeway Bay, funded by what many suspected were Ho's investments. She later ventured into beauty salons and high-end hair studios, all located in prime districts, catering to Hong Kong's rich clientele. Each business carried her personal touch: elegant interiors, soft lighting, quiet exclusivity. But success didn't last. Within a few years, her ventures began closing one after another. Then came the COVID-19 pandemic, a period that tested even the wealthiest. Ho's media operations were struggling to stay profitable as advertising dried up. According to Rosa's court filing, it was during this time, around 2020 to 2021, that he approached her for a loan of $10 million, citing liquidity problems within his company. To most, the idea seemed absurd. But for Rosa, the history they shared made the request personal. She agreed to help, wiring the money directly, expecting repayment once his finances stabilized. The documentation she provided to the court reportedly included written agreements and digital transfers, showing the transaction had taken place. After that, contact between them faded. As Ho's health declined and his businesses faltered, Rosa remained silent until his death changed everything. When she filed her claim in September 2024, it reignited old rumors that had long been buried, that their connection went far deeper than money, and that the loan might have been tied to something more emotional. Her lawyer argued the case as a straightforward debt recovery, but the public saw something different, a beauty queen suing her late lover's widow for millions. It wasn't just about the money, it was about recognition. To Hong Kong society, Rosa's move was both scandalous and tragic. To some, she was a woman wronged and forgotten. To others, a calculated opportunist who waited until her benefactor's passing. Either way, the lawsuit had already done what few could. It cracked open the polished facade of one of the city's most powerful families. In a city obsessed with image and silence, Rosa Law's voice became the echo of something long suppressed. The truth that even among the rich and untouchable, debts of the heart and debts of money can be dangerously intertwined. Long before the courtroom drama and the rumors of secret loans, the Ho family stood as one of Hong Kong's most respected dynasties, a family whose wealth was built not on gambling or property speculation, but on tobacco, printing, and sheer persistence. The story began with Ho Chuk-kwok, the patriarch, born in Shanghai in 1911, who showed remarkable business instincts from a young age. By his 20s, he had already established a thriving printing factory, producing packaging for cigarette companies and newspapers. When war swept across China in the late 1930s, most industrialists fled inland. But Ho Chuk-kwok stayed. While bombs fell over Shanghai, he continued operations and ended up profiting during the chaos. By the end of World War II, he was one of the most successful printing magnates in the city. When the communist government took power in 1949, Ho made a bold decision. He relocated his family and assets to Hong Kong. It was a gamble that paid off. In 1950, he founded the Hong Kong Tobacco Company, a small but ambitious venture that imported cigarette brands and produced its own line under the oil brand label. Over the decades, it grew into one of the most profitable privately held tobacco firms in the city. By the 1960s, Ho had secured exclusive Hong Kong rights to distribute Marlboro, a partnership with Philip Morris that transformed his modest enterprise into a commercial empire. Yet despite his immense wealth, valued at over $10 billion by the 1980s, Ho Chuk-kwok remained famously humble. He continued to live in the same office building where his company was founded, a place that became both his home and his symbol of discipline. He believed that money should serve the family, not define it. Even in old age, he could be seen reviewing balance sheets himself, his hands still ink-stained from decades of printing work. When he passed away in 1999, Hong Kong's elite turned out in full to honor a man who represented the last of the self-made generation. The family business then passed to his son, Ho Chuk-kwok, who was very different from his father. Educated in the United States, fluent in English and finance, the younger Ho was more cosmopolitan, more public, and more ambitious. In 2001, he expanded beyond tobacco, acquiring a controlling stake in Sing Tao Daily, one of Hong Kong's oldest and most influential newspapers. To many, this marked the family's transition from traditional manufacturing wealth to media and capital markets. It was a symbol of modernization, a bridge between the old industrial Hong Kong and the new digital age. But along with prestige came new challenges. Running a media empire meant navigating politics, competition, and constant public scrutiny. For the first time, the private Ho family name became a public brand. And with that attention came curiosity about the man himself, his fortune, his family, and his private life. It was this visibility that ultimately drew Rosa Law into his orbit, as she moved in the same circles of high society that celebrated wealth and influence. What had started as a legacy of resilience and respect was now evolving into a story of vulnerability, a dynasty once untouchable now exposed to the pressures of modern scandal. The empire was still standing, but the foundations were beginning to crack, and the story of Ho Chuk-kwok was about to turn from triumph to tragedy. In the early 2000s, Hong Kong's tabloids were obsessed with the glittering intersection of wealth and beauty, and no story embodied that more than the quiet but unmistakable connection between Ho Chuk-kwok and Rosa Law. To the public, Ho was a respected businessman, a husband, a father, and a polished figure of Hong Kong's elite. To Rosa, he was the man who had once given her a sense of belonging in a world that judged her for chasing ambition. Their paths had crossed at a charity gala, according to insiders, and what began as casual conversation soon evolved into a discreet companionship that lasted for years. For Rosa, being associated with such a man was both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it granted her access to circles most actresses could only dream of: private clubs, international events, and introductions to powerful investors. On the other, it painted her into a corner she could never escape: the role of a kept woman. Hong Kong's gossip magazines began to hint at a hidden romance between a newspaper tycoon and a former beauty queen. Photos of the two attending the same events, seated discreetly apart, began circulating in whispers, never fully published but known well enough among the social elite. Despite his image, Ho was not untouched by personal turmoil. His wife, Wong Se-ying, remained deliberately out of the spotlight, a woman of lineage and class who preferred quiet dignity to confrontation. Insiders described her as aware of her husband's extramarital connections, but unwilling to jeopardize the stability of a family that stood as one of Hong Kong's few moral strongholds in business. The couple had built their reputation on restraint and tradition, and public scandal would have destroyed everything Ho's father had built. Yet Ho's fascination with Rosa persisted. He reportedly purchased her an apartment in mid-levels, one of Hong Kong Island's most exclusive neighborhoods, worth nearly $17 million at the time. The property was registered under her name, a gesture that many interpreted as both affection and protection. When she launched her luxury furniture boutique in Causeway Bay, Ho attended the opening in person, something few tycoons of his stature ever did for someone outside their family. That appearance alone fueled endless speculation. Still, both maintained a careful balance between intimacy and distance. Rosa, for all her rumored ties to Ho, was determined not to be defined by him. She opened several ventures independently: beauty salons, hair studios, and cosmetic partnerships with Japanese brands. But as her fortunes rose and fell, Ho's visits reportedly became less frequent. By the mid-2010s, the once vibrant actress had retreated from public life. The two had seemingly gone their separate ways, their connection fading into silence, until his death brought her name back. When Rosa's lawsuit surfaced years later, it wasn't just a financial claim. It was a ghost resurfacing from a past that the Ho family had long tried to erase. The tabloids called it the most expensive secret in Hong Kong, and in many ways it was. Because this wasn't only about $10 million, it was about validation, reputation, and the question that haunts the city's elite. When love is built on power, what remains are how many pains when power disappears. By the time Rosa Law's lawsuit was filed in September 2024, the Ho family had barely begun to recover from the loss of their patriarch. The city's financial press described the family's transition as orderly, but behind that polite phrasing lay a struggle to maintain stability amid grief, public attention, and lingering corporate challenges. The Sing Tao Group had already been through years of decline: layoffs, shrinking readership, and the sale of its overseas assets. Ho's son, Lawrence Ho, had taken the reins in hopes of reviving the brand, but the debts were mounting faster than the returns. Into this fragile balance came Rosa's claim, a $10 million debt that no one in the family saw coming. In her legal documents submitted to the High Court, Rosa stated that during the COVID-19 pandemic, Ho had privately borrowed $10 million from her to stabilize cash flow. She described it as a formal loan, not a gift, supported by signed agreements and transfer records. The timing, however, was damning. Between 2020 and 2022, Sing Tao had already faced several financial blows: unpaid advertising contracts, restructuring costs, and the closure of its printing divisions. Insiders now whispered that the once proud media empire had been quietly bleeding money, and that Ho's personal fortune, tied up in illiquid assets, was no longer what it seemed. The Ho family's lawyers responded swiftly, neither confirming nor denying the debt, but questioning the legitimacy of the documentation. To the family, it wasn't just about the money, it was about protecting a legacy. A public acknowledgement that their patriarch had borrowed from a woman outside the marriage would stain a dynasty that prided itself on discipline and honor. Yet to Rosa, it was about justice. She had waited years, perhaps out of loyalty or fear, before making her claim. Now, with the man gone, she wanted her due. The lawsuit's timing was explosive. Hong Kong's tabloids ran headlines that blurred the line between finance and romance. Beauty queen sues late tycoon's widow. Loan or love, and what he owed her in money and more. Within days, Rosa's name was everywhere again. Old photos resurfaced, her pageant days, her boutique opening, the rumored apartment. The court filings became a kind of resurrection, pulling both her and Ho's ghost back into the public eye. But as the case progressed, more layers emerged. Sources close to the family revealed that Ho had been quietly liquidating assets in his final years, selling properties, reducing shares, and even seeking private loans to fund his media operations. It painted a picture not of a billionaire at his peak, but of a man trying desperately to keep his empire from collapsing. The HK $10 million Rosa claimed might not have been a betrayal. It could have been a final act of trust between two people bound by an unspoken past. Still, in Hong Kong's court of public opinion, there are no quiet endings. The case had already done its damage. It left the city wondering whether the Ho dynasty's immaculate image was simply another illusion of power, and whether love and debt, once mixed, can ever truly be separated. When Ho Chuk-kwok was laid to rest, the city's elite spoke of legacy, success, and respect. Few mentioned the word regret. But in the months that followed, as the HK $10 million lawsuit unfolded, regret seemed to hang in the air, an invisible echo of all the choices that had brought him here. To some, he was a brilliant businessman who modernized a century-old empire. To others, he was a man who, despite his wealth, couldn't escape the emotional debts of his past. In a city built on appearances, his story became a mirror, reflecting how fragile the foundations of even the grandest families can be when private lives collide with public judgment. For Rosa Law, the lawsuit was never just about money. It was a final assertion of existence, a reminder to a society that had long dismissed women like her as ornaments in the lives of powerful men. Whether she wins or not, her name will remain tied to his forever, etched in headlines and whispered conversations across Hong Kong's high society. And perhaps that, in its own quiet way, is what she wanted most: to be remembered not as a forgotten footnote in a billionaire's story, but as a woman who dared to speak when silence was easier. The saga of Ho Chuk-kwok and Rosa Law is not unique in Hong Kong. It's part of a larger truth about power and vulnerability. Behind every dynasty are secrets traded in shadows, debts hidden behind polished smiles, and emotions suppressed beneath layers of wealth. In the end, all it takes is one death and one signature on a lawsuit to unravel decades of perfection. Because in this city of glass towers and fragile reputations, the most dangerous currency isn't money, it's memory.